When we talk about Europe, we say Brussels, as though all 28 countries and 530 million citizens were condensed into these few square miles. Brussels has decided this. It's because of Brussels that. Brussels is not Europe, but all of Europe is present in Brussels, right here in the Schuman district. Many residents of Brussels mostly avoid these streets full of smart suits, electric scooters, and everyone speaking le European English. Brexit negotiations began in 2017. This film was able to follow Michel Barnier, the Frenchman who would negotiate the divorce settlement with the British. The chief negotiator is a committed European. But how do ordinary EU citizens feel about the Union today? Would they have voted to remain or leave like 52% of the British? If for no other reason than to say, hey, you up there, it's time you listen to us. It's now the 19th of June 2017, 1 year after the Brexit referendum. The negotiations are just beginning. Journalists, British in the lead, rush to get a ringside seat for the biggest divorce in history.
Franchement, il faut être sérieux, hein? Le Royaume-Uni décide de quitter l'Union européenne. C'est une affaire grave, très grave, avec beaucoup de conséquences. Nous prenons cette affaire au sérieux et je suis sûr. On doit détricoter 44 années de relations. On ne quitte pas un club de gym, on ne résilie pas son abonnement téléphonique. On quitte l'Union européenne après 44 années, des milliers de textes, de lois, de traités internationaux qu'on a fait ensemble.
I just wanted to know if you're prepared to whistle us a tune.
I'm not hearing any whistling, just the clock ticking.
Berlaymont, headquarters of the European Commission. The fifth floor is home to the task force working with chief negotiator Michel Barnier. Security is tight.
No phones, no phones.
Barnier has a team of 50 experts, some of whom are used to delicate negotiations.
Non, moi ça me va si ça colle.
Their mission is to negotiate the ordered withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the EU. The task it faces is colossal and time is short.
Il quitte 750 accords internationaux que l'Union européenne a signés avec des partenaires ou des pays tiers. Tous les accords commerciaux avec les pays tiers, des accords de pêche, des accords sur l'aviation, des accords techniques, juridiques, scientifiques. Ce sont des conséquences considérables qui n'ont pas d'ailleurs été bien mesurées ou comprises ou expliquées avant.
Okay.
Canary,
All right.
Barnier was given the mission by the 27 heads of state represented on the council by Donald Tusk. It was to Mr. Tusk that on the 29th of March 2017, Theresa May brought the official notification that triggered Article 50, the divorce procedure. Once this letter had been handed over, Barnier had 2 years to accomplish his mission.
To jest list, który napisała do mnie Theresa May. List, w którym informuje mnie o decyzji, jaką podjął rząd brytyjski. Ten list, który wręczał mi ambasador brytyjski. Dla mnie najważniejszym zadaniem było utrzymanie jedności 27, ale to było moje zadanie również. To było wyraźne stwierdzenie, że referendum Wielkiej Brytanii nie jest początkiem procesu, czyli kolejnych wyjść z Unii Europejskiej. Jednym z bezpośrednich i oczywistych rezultatów referendum było to, że niektóre spotkania Rady Europejskiej będą musiały odbywać się w formacie 27, nie 28. I dla mnie zawsze osobiście jest bardzo przykrym doświadczeniem, kiedy kończymy spotkanie w formacie 28 I muszę powiedzieć do pani premier May, Theresa, it's time to go.
J'ai toujours pensé que cette Europe est plus forte si on est ensemble. Donc en 1972, j'avais 21 ans. J'étais donc depuis plusieurs années militant du Parti gaulliste. De Gaulle avait beaucoup de réserves, de réticences à accueillir le Royaume-Uni dans l'Union européenne. Le nouveau président français à ce moment-là, Georges Pompidou, a eu moins de réticences et il a provoqué un référendum sur le traité d'adhésion. Et j'ai fait campagne pour le oui, ce qui n'était pas forcément évident pour un jeune gaulliste, mais je ne l'ai jamais regretté. J'ai toujours pensé, je pense toujours, qu'il vaut mieux être ensemble, que chacun chez soi ou chacun pour soi. Dans le monde d'aujourd'hui, c'est encore plus vrai qu'en 72.
The unity of the 27 will be a crucial factor in these negotiations. Barnier therefore decides to associate the European Parliament with his dealings. For at the end of the day, its assent will be needed to ratify the exit agreement. The chief negotiator will therefore be in permanent contact with a work group specifically tasked with monitoring Brexit.
D'abord, un message de mes 6 députés britanniques qui insistent pour que le négociateur que tu es tienne bon, autrement dit, fasse preuve de fermeté avec le gouvernement britannique. En effet. L'idée même de l'Union européenne, c'est ensemble, on est plus fort. Et ça, c'est vrai qu'au sein des 27, cette conscience-là recule. C'est vrai qu'on voit de plus en plus des logiques de chacun pour soi, des logiques de je peux mieux tirer mon épingle du jeu seul qu'en faisant partie de l'Union européenne. Et ça, en effet, c'est inquiétant. On voit les Européens se diviser sur beaucoup de sujets, sur le sujet de la zone euro, sur le sujet migration, sur le sujet de la transition énergétique, etc. On voit beaucoup de divisions au sein des 27. Alors, je ne pense pas qu'elles iront jusqu'à l'explosion de l'Union européenne, mais par contre, on se demande si ce sentiment d'appartenance commune est un ciment encore suffisamment fort au sein des 27.
As the divorce is happening, the EU is already suffering a crisis. Barnier's mission goes beyond that of a simple negotiator. He's going to have to confederate the other nations and stop Brexit from spreading, causing the entire Union to unravel.
Voilà, rentrez.
Je kunt natuurlijk niet zeggen, na zo'n referendum, oh, alles gaat fantastisch in de Europese Unie. Het is een succes, de Europese Unie. Zijn er nog altijd die dat blijven zeggen. Voor mij is dat een falen van de Europese Unie. Wanneer een belangrijke lidstaat gelijk Groot-Brittannië de Europese Unie verlaat, dan is er iets aan de hand. Dan klopt het niet. Het is natuurlijk niet de eerste alarmbel. Er zijn nog alarmbellen geweest. In referenda in Denemarken, in Nederland, in Ierland. Maar de reactie was dan altijd, oh, dat zal wel overwaaien. Nu, na het referendum van de Brexit, kon het niet meer overwaaien. Ze gaan eruit.
Brexit wasn't the first alarm signal for the European Union. Yes, the EU had ensured peace throughout the continent, abolished borders, and contributed to the mobility of its citizens. It had even established a common currency to put the economy on a sure footing. But the financial crisis, which began in the US in 2008, plunged several countries into austerity. It destabilized the European edifice, showing that the construction was far from complete.
Greece was the flimsiest part of the Eurozone. And when we had a systemic crisis in Europe, in the Eurozone in particular, being the flimsiest part, it collapsed first.
In 2011, Greece was close to going bankrupt, endangering the common currency. Europe was considering kicking Greece out of the euro, and there was even talk at the time of Brexit, a Greek exit of the EU. In 2015, Yanis Varoufakis was Greece's Minister of Finance. It was he who had to negotiate with Brussels in particular his country's colossal debt, part of which he was hoping to cancel outright.
Well, the one thing to understand about Brussels negotiations is that there are no negotiations. In my experience, during those 5-6 months I was in office, I was negotiating for the right to negotiate, and I never succeeded.
In the end, the financial rescue package upheld by the European Union forced the Greek government to implement an austerity plan.
Is this a sad day for you? A sad day for Europe, but we will overcome it.
No other country has had the austerity that we had. 1 in 2 families has no one working in it. I'll repeat this, because this is a tragic statistic in the history of the world. 1 in 2 families have no one working in it. They live on one pension, which is being cut every day, every other day. So now we have a quadruple bankruptcy. We have bankrupt state, bankrupt banks, bankrupt families, and bankrupt companies. Everybody owes to everyone, and no one can pay. And Europe is pretending that this is all getting better, because what are they doing? They're extending more loans to pretend that this thing is continuing.
That was a period Brexit was not talked about then, when everybody talked about Grexit, Greece. And the big question was, will Greece remain inside the euro or not? Can a country leave the euro? Can it remain in the European Union if it leaves the euro? What would be the impact on the rest of the euro area if a country left? The crisis, of course, was felt also in the UK, and that brought with it a political crisis. The British simply said, we do not want to be part of an EU-wide system of bailing out countries which are suffering because of the economic crisis.
The financial crisis fanned the flames of Britain's age-old Euroscepticism. David Cameron, Conservative Prime Minister at the time, blamed Europe for making decisions solely in the interest of the Eurozone. He demanded reforms, and if these were not met, he would hold a referendum about his country's membership of the EU, a referendum which would furthermore serve to heal the tensions in the Conservative Party, which was as divided as ever on the European question.
Brexit is really a result of the psychodrama within the Conservative Party, profoundly divided between a sort of nationalistic wing that thinks that Europe is an interference with our sovereignty, and then a more traditional wing of the Conservative Party that believes that as part of a thriving modern economy, Britain's got to be part of the bigger European family.
At some stage in the next few years, the EU will need to agree on treaty change to make the changes needed for the long-term future of the euro. And when we have negotiated that new settlement, we will give the British people a referendum with a very simple in or out choice.
What happened was that there was a growing voice, not just in the Conservative Party, but on the fringes, calling for a referendum on the European Union and our future in it. And I put my hands up. I thought it was a good idea, because for me, it would lance the boil, have the referendum, win, job done, they could all shut up. Put this issue to bed for another 30, 40 years. Thank you very much. Move on.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, my government will hold a referendum on membership of the European Union. I pray that the blessing of Almighty God may rest upon your councils.
We have to make people understand that what this referendum is about is taking back control of our lives, our laws, and our borders.
We can take back control of our immigration system. And if we vote leave on June the 23rd, we can take back control of £350 million a week.
We should not be paying £55 million a day to a club whose accounts have not been signed off for nearly 20 years.
If we vote to leave on the 23rd of June, we will be voting for higher prices. We will be voting for fewer jobs.
The very person responsible for the Leave referendum campaigned without much conviction for Remain. Cameron was quite sure the British people would decide to stay in the European Union. The people, however, worn out by his austerity policies, chose to reject the system. Why were there no jobs? Because of the workers from Eastern Europe who'd been flooding into the country since 2004. And who had let them in? Brussels, of course.
One of the big cards that was played by the Brexiteers was immigration. I mean, quite dreadfully, quite outrageously. So, you know, that photograph of Farage standing on a poster with a long train of brown faces. These were largely Syrian refugees fleeing war, rape and terror in their own country, looking for refuge somewhere. Absolutely nothing to do with the European Union and Britain whatsoever.
The total number of votes cast in favour of leave was 17,410,742. This means that the UK has voted to leave the European Union.
Cameron gambled and Cameron lost. Exit Cameron. Everyone expected Brexiteer Boris Johnson to become Prime Minister, but quite unexpectedly, it was in fact Theresa May. Like Cameron, she had campaigned to remain. Her first speeches as PM, however, took a different turn.
We're going to talk about global Britain, our ambitious vision for Britain after Brexit. We're going to talk about Britain, in which we are close friends, allies and trading partners with our European neighbours, but a Britain in which we pass our own laws and govern ourselves. It was the biggest vote for change this country has ever known. Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.
A referendum is inevitably binary. Yes, no, in, out, leave, remain. That was the question, and that was the question which was answered. Immediately, of course, the next question is, well, what sort of Brexit is going to happen? How will it happen? When will it happen? On what terms?
These were the questions British members of Parliament pondered in the run-up to confirming the decision to leave the EU. In February 2017, they invited Jonathan Fall, a former spokesperson for the European Commission and an expert in the intricacies of Brussels, to enlighten them.
Is it realistic to think that we can get an agreement in 1 year, from the autumn of this year to October 2018?
Well, it depends on the level of ambition in the negotiations. We've had the recent experience of the agreement with Canada, which has taken a very long time.
Can you remind us how long?
The undertaking...
The Canadian agreement took?
I mean, it's still not yet fully in force, and it started at least 7 years ago. I don't have the exact dates to hand, but it's taken a very long time.
Thinking about for whom the scenario of no deal is worse, would that be for themselves or for the United Kingdom?
Well, I think it's my personal view is that it would be a bad outcome for everybody.
In terms of the EU negotiators who will be negotiating on behalf of Brussels, how hard are they going to work?
Extremely hard. Michel Barnier, as you know, former minister, former commissioner, has been put in charge of this. He has a dedicated team working on it, and they will work day and night.
On the 19th of June 2017, a year after the referendum, Barnier welcomes a delegation led by notorious Eurosceptic David Davis. It's quite clear what is at stake in this confrontation. On one side, the British want to take back control of their sovereignty and borders, while on the other, Barnier and the Europeans are trying to protect a construction which has taken years to build. Together, they have to agree on a withdrawal agreement so they can then start mapping out the future.
Le Royaume-Uni doit assumer les conséquences de ses choix. C'est lui qui veut sortir de l'Union, nous respectons ce choix, même si nous le regrettons. C'est lui qui décide, dans le même esprit, de sortir du marché unique parce qu'ils ne veulent plus respecter la liberté de circulation des personnes, ils ne veulent plus reconnaître le rôle de la Cour de justice, ils ne veulent plus accepter nos règles. Mais nous, on a notre responsabilité, qui est de préserver ce que nous sommes, c'est de préserver le marché unique, l'Union européenne, ses règles, ses valeurs, ses politiques. Et on va pas, rien de tout ça n'est négociable. Nous avons exigé de négocier d'abord sur les sujets du divorce, de mettre de l'ordre dans cette séparation, de remettre de la sécurité là où le Brexit crée de l'insécurité, avant de débuter des discussions sur la future relation. Les Britanniques ont très mal réagi à ça. Ils voulaient en fait créer une sorte de grand bargaining, discuter de l'avenir, obtenir des aménagements, des situations particulières, des morceaux du marché intérieur, en réglant leurs dettes du passé. Nous avons dit on règle d'abord les questions du passé, les questions financières, la question des droits des citoyens, la question de l'Irlande. On ne va pas laisser des hypothèques peser sur la future relation.
A first observation. By dividing the negotiations into two distinct phases, it's Barnier who's setting the agenda. A second observation, it very quickly becomes clear that the two sides are not equally well prepared for this.
Let's start from the center. Go ahead, Mark.
So, Mr. Barnier, you said you want clarity from the UK government. Do you think it's a problem that thus far they've not revealed more about their position? And do you think it reveals anything about the UK's attitude to this whole process, that they've not sent you more paperwork up to this point?
Plus tôt nous recevrons la clarification des positions britanniques sur tous les sujets où il ne s'est pas encore exprimé, mieux ça vaudra. Moi, je suis prêt. Notre équipe est prête. Simplement, si on veut négocier, comme vous venez de le dire, il faut que chacun exprime au départ, sur chaque point, sa ligne.
The negotiators tackle the first of the three divorce issues, the fate of EU citizens. With the re-establishment of a border in Europe, some 5 million of them will suddenly become foreign nationals.
On a engagé cette première séquence sur les sujets de la séparation, les sujets les plus importants. Et le plus important pour nous, pour remettre de la sécurité là où il n'y en a plus, c'est la question des citoyens. Il y a 3,5 millions de citoyens européens qui vivent et qui travaillent au Royaume-Uni, qui sont inquiets. De l'autre côté, il y a aussi 1,5 million au moins de citoyens britanniques qui vivent, travaillent, sont en retraite en Europe et qui sont inquiets pour leur situation, pour celle de leurs enfants, pour leur carte de résidence, pour leurs droits sociaux, pour le versement de leur retraite. Donc nous devons donner de la sécurité. Ça, c'est la priorité pour nous et les Britanniques dans cette négociation.
Among the EU citizens living in the United Kingdom are 1 million Poles. The UK welcomed them with open arms during the great opening up to Eastern European countries in 2004.
We got the numbers completely wrong. We thought there would be tens of thousands. There turned out to be hundreds of thousands of people coming. But our economy was really strong. Our economy needed these people.
I started my funeral career in late 2004, in December 2004. The company seen the opportunity of opening for the Polish side of the business with such huge numbers of Polish people arriving to the UK. So I was promoting the Polish side of the business for them. England was welcoming and it became home. After the referendum, it was all right to say, I really don't like you because you're from Poland. Why don't you go back there? The door of Polish Social Center was vandalized and there was more and more increasing hate crime on the streets aiming at Polish people, Eastern European people.
Dat is de ironie van het verhaal. Wie was er de grote voorstander van de uitbreiding en snelle uitbreiding van de Europese Unie? Groot-Brittannië. En nu zeggen zij, ja, maar wij hebben 3 miljoen mensen van de Europese Unie op ons grondgebied. Dat gaat niet, die nemen werk af van onze mensen, die dragen niet genoeg bij de sociale zekerheid en zo meer. Wat dikwijls allemaal fout is, hè?
The customers which are coming to my restaurant, they're watching TV, they're watching media. There is those episodes of racism happening in the UK, and people start getting worried. I don't know. Let's see what's going to happen, but it doesn't look bright, and lots of them living. If UK will send me a letter saying, hello Damien, you have 30 days to leave UK, I would leave in 24 hours. Not because I don't like Britain, but if Britain do not like me, I don't need to be here.
The second problem of the divorce is money, a more touchy subject for the British, since Brexiteers campaigned on the theme of Europe costing too much. The British are leaving, so they have to settle up. The British press saw it as a punishment intended to dissuade other countries which might be considering leaving.
Le budget européen, il est construit tous les 7 ans. Et les politiques européennes sont débattues et décidées ensemble, à 28. Les Britanniques payent à peu près 15% de tout, et nous demandons que ces comptes-là soient soldés, puisque les engagements pris sont pris sur 7 ans. En fonction de ces engagements pris à 28, vous avez des milliers de projets partout en Europe, l'agriculture, les régions, les universités, Erasmus. Évidemment, s'il manque 15% à la fin, il y a 15% des programmes ou des projets qui sont interrompus. Et ça, c'est pas possible. Donc nous devons trouver un accord pour que les Britanniques payent leur part, ni plus ni moins. Il ne s'agit pas d'une exit bill, il ne s'agit pas d'une punition, il ne s'agit pas d'une revanche.
Mr Davis, on the financial settlement, can you give us at least some clarity, because people are confused? Does this mean categorically that Britain accepts that there will be a net flow of money to the European Union?
What I will say is that we're a country that recognises its international responsibilities and rights, and that we will seek to exercise both in the future. I don't recognise the phrase net flow, but we will seek to exercise both in the future.
The potential problems of the third point of the divorce are clearly underestimated by the British. Those posed by the Irish border. In the coming months of negotiation, the battle will mainly be played out on this front.
Entre l'Irlande du Nord et la République d'Irlande, qui fait partie du marché unique et de l'Union européenne et qui veut rester dans l'Union européenne et dans le marché unique, il n'y a plus de frontières et on ne peut pas reconstruire de frontières. Vous traversez en Irlande, du côté de la République d'Irlande, capitale Dublin, vous traversez le champ ou la route et vous êtes de l'autre côté, à quelques mètres, au Royaume-Uni. Très bien, tant que ces deux pays sont dans le même espace économique et politique qu'est l'Union européenne. Mais le jour où le Royaume-Uni décide de sortir, il y a une limite entre le Royaume-Uni, qui est devenu un pays tiers, et l'Union européenne. Cette limite ne peut pas devenir une frontière en Irlande, pour des raisons historiques, graves, qui tiennent aux conflits, souvent tragiques, qui ont eu lieu entre les différentes communautés, et en Irlande du Nord, entre catholiques et protestants.
I'll show you the bog side, the border. Yes. You see the mast at the background? The tall mast? Yes. That is the border. Right round. So we are very, very close. This area here is the bog site. The incident of Bloody Sunday happened there. 13 of our people were shot dead by British soldiers. One man would die later. It was a very sad time in the city.
Memories of the Troubles are still fresh, on the walls and in people's minds. It wouldn't take much to wake up the ghosts of the past.
The first shot hit a 16-year-old boy that was against the fence over here. His second shot hit a 17-year-old boy that was running alongside me. Both of us are now trying to make our way out this side. The 17-year-old was shot in the shoulder here, and the bullet went in there, and it came out there, and it went in here, and it exited at the side of his nose. He actually survived. And what happened was 3 guys ran out, and there was a low wall that came out here, and at the bottom of the wall there was a woman. And when I looked at what she was looking at, my friend Jim Ray was lying here, already shot through the back. And a soldier walked over, stood 6 or 7 feet behind him, and put another round in his back. And I stood here and watched that soldier murder my friend.
The Good Friday Agreement, signed in 1998, brought an end to decades of violence. The Peace Bridge, linking Protestant and Catholic neighbourhoods in Derry, is a symbol of this newfound peace.
Yesterday I just arrived, and the sun shined, different from Brussels. And I enjoyed a walk on the Peace Bridge. I'm delighted also to meet today with businesses from all parts of the Northern Ireland to understand their opinions and also how to avoid a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Do you think the British government doesn't understand that the peace process might be at risk through the return of a hard border?
We have proposed one solution, which is operational. And the Prime Minister of UK, Mrs. May, has accepted to recognize that we have together to maintain the whole island economy, the peace process, and now we have to find together the operational and practical solution to deliver. Okay. Thank you very much. Le jour où le Royaume-Uni décide de quitter l'Union, de quitter le marché unique, de quitter l'Union douanière, il crée un problème. Parce que nous avons une obligation pour la sécurité sanitaire, la sécurité alimentaire, le contrôle des produits, des normes, des règles d'origine. Nous avons une obligation de contrôler tout ce qui rentre et qui sort du marché unique. Et la limite du marché unique va passer au milieu de l'île.
The south of Ireland is a member of the EU, and currently so are we. So we cannot have a situation where you can have two different relationships with Europe on this island. We cannot have part of Ireland in the EU and a smaller part of Ireland out of the EU. Of course, as an Irish Republican, the solution to the Brexit problem is the reunification of Ireland.
While the reunification of the island is the dearest long-held desire of the Catholics and Sinn Féin, it's the worst nightmare of the Protestants and the Loyalist Party, the DUP.
Constitutionally, we are part of the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom as a whole voted to leave the European Union. So therefore Northern Ireland will leave the European Union with the rest of the United Kingdom. But what we cannot do is to jeopardise Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom in the process. So we will have to come up with some methods, whether they are technology, whatever they may be, to actually deal with that land border.
To avoid the re-establishment of a land border, the DUP and the British government are simply thinking about investing in an invisible technology-based border. But Europe is not convinced.
Ja, we gaan een grens hebben, maar het gaat toch geen grens zijn, want we gaan alles scannen en met sensoren en met moderne apparatuur. Dat is natuurlijk, dat kan helpen, maar dat is niet de oplossing. Je moet eerst en vooral weten, moet er een grens zijn? Als je dan een grens maakt, dan kun je die natuurlijk op verschillende manieren. Maar volgens mij, als er terug een grens komt, beginnen opnieuw de problemen in Ierland en in Noord-Ierland.
No technical solution is acceptable to Europe, and it won't be accepted by the people of Ireland, north, south, east and west. There will never, ever, ever, ever again be a hard or soft border here on the island of Ireland. But there's a solution. There's a technical solution that preserves the Good Friday Agreement, and that's about checks in the sea.
A border in the sea between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. This is exactly what Leo Varadkar, the Prime Minister of the Irish Republic, suggests. Barnier considers it as an emergency solution in the eventuality that no other agreement is found. It's what comes to be known as the backstop, in other words, a safety net.
Nous avons des raisons d'être quand même préoccupés par le temps qui passe. et c'est ce que j'ai dit hier, clairement au 10 Downing Street, dans le point presse après ce déjeuner. Moi, je vous dis très clairement, nous sommes dans la perspective d'un retrait ordonné, donc d'un accord. On ne peut pas accepter ce traité s'il ne comporte pas les solutions pour l'Irlande.
For Barnier and the EU27, Ireland is a major consideration. But it doesn't seem to be so for David Davis, who sees it as a mere technical problem that will be easy to solve. As the summer of 2017 ends, he's focusing more on the exit bill. There's also the question of the Court of Justice of the European Union, its chief judicial authority. The United Kingdom, in the name of its own sovereignty, wants no more to do with it.
The Secretary of State for exiting the European Union, Secretary David Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will now update the House on the 2 rounds of negotiations with the European Union, which took place in July and August. And while at times these negotiations have been tough, it's clear that we've made concrete progress on many important issues.
The MPs in Westminster have every reason to be sceptical of David Davis's optimism. In reality, the negotiations are already well behind schedule.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Oui. Il y a quelque chose que vous avez dit les uns ou les autres que je ne comprends pas. C'est l'idée que les négociateurs européens que je suis ou l'Union européenne voudraient faire traîner les choses, voudraient vous retenir, que nous jouerions la montre. Mais, mesdames et messieurs, le référendum au Royaume-Uni a eu lieu le 23 juin 2016. Nous avons reçu la lettre de Theresa May notifiant cette volonté de retrait le 30 mars 2017. Nous avons, à raison des élections au Royaume-Uni, attendu fin juin 2017 pour commencer cette négociation. Nous ne jouons pas la montre. Vous avez pris le temps. Nous respectons ce temps, mais franchement, je ne peux pas accepter ce reproche et nous sommes même prêts. Et nous sommes prêts, je suis prêt à accélérer, à intensifier le rythme des négociations autant que nous le pourrons.
On the 4th of December 2017, after more than 5 months of hard work, a rumour is going around that the negotiators are close to an agreement which would finally complete Phase 1, the actual divorce. It seems an agreement was reached on the question of citizens' rights, the divorce bill, the Court of Justice, and even on the Irish border problem. Journalists are gathering in great numbers for the dénouement.
Donc Theresa May arrive avec l'idée que, au fond, le seul point vraiment à discuter, c'est cette question de la Cour de justice, où nous sommes, nous, demandeurs. Et puis, durant cette discussion, Theresa May reçoit un premier message que lui transmet par un bout de papier Roy Robbins, et puis un deuxième message, et on voit bien qu'il se passe quelque chose, on ne sait pas quoi. Et puis finalement, un troisième message qui l'informe que, en réalité, elle nous le dit, très franchement, assez interpellée et assez inquiète, qu'elle a un problème sur un autre sujet pour lequel nous avions trouvé un accord avec son équipe, qui est la question de l'Irlande.
The messages are from Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party, the DUP, Theresa May's allies in the British government. They've heard via the press that the Prime Minister is about to sign an agreement which would include Barnier's famous backstop. This solution would avoid a land border by having it in the sea between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. The DUP sees this as an open door to a future unification of the two islands, something they've been opposing for years, simply unacceptable.
Donc, elle nous dit à un moment donné, je ne peux pas continuer les discussions, sinon vous n'aurez plus d'interlocuteurs pour discuter, parce qu'il n'y aura plus de gouvernement. C'est aussi grave que cela.
Should Theresa May be ousted, the negotiations will be held up. For the first time, there is real talk of the possibility of a no deal, the nightmare scenario that everyone wants to avoid.
Despite our best efforts and the significant progress we and our teams have made over the past days on the three main withdrawal issues, it was not possible to reach a complete agreement today. But I have to say that she's a tough negotiator and not an easy one.
In the evening of the 4th of December, the British Prime Minister heads back to London for negotiations with her DUP partners. Under pressure from them, she responds to the European backstop with her own backstop, her own safety net.
We did improve upon the agreement, and we did get paragraph 50 inserted into the agreement, which means that there could be no new regulatory barriers within the internal market of the United Kingdom without the say-so of the Northern Ireland Assembly.
The DUP are reassured. Northern Ireland will have the same status as the rest of the United Kingdom. So that's the problem of the Irish border solved, or at least in appearance. For a closer look reveals that the two emergency solutions are totally incompatible. The can has just been kicked down the road. On the 15th of December, the European Summit ratifies this agreement and officially brings phase 1 of the negotiations to an end.
Brexit, soprattutto ci sarà veramente la domanda che stamattina è stata posta al Presidente della Commissione.
27, that's the European Union minus the UK, to come to their decision. Has the
nicht
UK
als Freude werten, sondern wohl eher Erleichterung darüber, dass es jetzt endlich gelungen ist, diesen ersten Verhandlungsschritt abzuschließen und in die zweite Phase zu gehen. Alle sind sich
To sum up phase 1, Barnier and Davis have guaranteed the rights of their respective citizens after the divorce, and the British have agreed to honour their financial commitments. But there's still the island problem. The negotiators still don't agree on how to prevent a land border. During phase 2 then, Barnier will expect the British to opt for a new relationship with the European Union, a relationship which quite simply requires no border. Without a solution for Ireland, there will be no withdrawal agreement.
Agreement to the withdrawal without a Russian solution for Ireland.
So phase 2 of the negotiations gets underway 2 months late. Now there will finally be discussions, much anticipated by the British, about their future relationship with Europe. But there's an endless list of things to renegotiate. For example, agreements in the transport sector all have to be re-established.
Pour que simplement les avions britanniques puissent atterrir en Europe et nos avions puissent atterrir à Heathrow, il faut un accord. Puisque jusqu'à présent, tout est géré en commun dans ce qu'on appelle le ciel unique. L'Union européenne, il quitte le ciel unique. Si on veut simplement que les avions atterrissent et décollent, il faut un accord bilatéral entre le Royaume-Uni et l'Union européenne. Et eux, il faut qu'ils renégocient tous leurs accords bilatéraux qu'on avait signés en leur nom et à leur place. Puisqu'ils vont devenir autonomes, il faut qu'ils signent de nouveaux accords qui créent des postes de fonctionnaires pour ça, avec toutes les autres régions du monde.
During this phase, they'll also have to renegotiate fishing rights. This is a particularly sensitive issue because it comprises the notion of territorial waters and had been central to the demands of Brexiteers at the time of the referendum, especially among Irish fishermen.
85% of the cod in the English Channel for the last 20 years has been caught by French boats. So that's why, that is a reason why people vote for Brexit. For 40 years, they've been telling us all the problems come from Europe. And then on the day that you have to vote, they asked you to vote to remain. It didn't make sense. But from a fishing point of view, there has been an awful lot of bureaucracy that has come from Europe. And probably a lot of unnecessary legislation, because what would apply to fishermen in the Mediterranean may not apply to fishermen in the Irish Sea. The fishery negotiation is Theresa May's ace in her pocket, and is she playing it right? No, we don't think so. Michel Barnier seems to be a better negotiator.
I'm today in Therry, the west coast of Denmark, a very important fishing community. Fishing is a tough job. Objectivement, aujourd'hui, nos pêcheurs européens pêchent beaucoup plus dans les eaux britanniques que le contraire. En revanche, les produits transformés de la pêche britannique sont exportés pour 70% de leur volume et de leur valeur dans le marché unique. Donc nous allons avoir une discussion globale avec les Britanniques sur notre accès à leurs eaux et leur accès à notre marché.
All my grandparents and my dad has always fished this species in the English water back to 1960.
Sure.
If we are excluded from the English area, this will be a ghost town. But we're hoping that we will maintain our access to English water.
I can't say there will be no change. I don't know the outcome. I will do my best.
But among all the subjects under discussion, the one most preying on the negotiators' minds is the future of the trading relationship. Brexit means Brexit, exclaimed Theresa May on coming to power. The UK was going to break free and start trading freely with the whole world.
De situatie die ze nu hebben, is economisch gezien de beste die er is. Zij zijn lid van de grootste single market in de wereld. 500 miljoen consumenten met hoge koopkracht. Dus als je u daar buiten zet, heb je altijd een minder gunstige situatie. Altijd.
We do more trade as Britain with the Netherlands than we do with Australia, New Zealand, Canada and India put together. We do more trade with Germany than the whole of the Commonwealth put together. All the 54 countries, 55, whatever it is, countries of the Commonwealth. Most countries' main trading partners are their immediate geographic neighbours.
Bijna 50% van de goederen en diensten van Groot-Brittannië gaan naar die 27 landen. Het omgekeerde is maar 8% van naar Groot-Brittannië. Dus zij hebben veel meer belang bij een akkoord dan wij hebben. Mocht er geen akkoord zijn, ja, dan valt alles stil. Dan kunnen zelfs goederen Engeland niet verlaten of binnen, dan kunnen zelfs geen vliegtuigen opstijgen. Dus dat is een chaotische toestand. Niemand kan dat risico eigenlijk serieus nemen. Dus Groot-Brittannië zit eigenlijk vast in de klok.
Il vaut mieux être ensemble que chacun chez soi.
Vous voulez quitter? Eh bien, vous allez voir.
Negotiating a new trading relationship and the countless individual agreements is going to be a colossal task.
Is it still your view that you can complete negotiating a free trade agreement by March 2019?
Will the British finally manage to formulate their vision of the future relationship with Europe?
What chance does she have of convincing 27 other European countries?
Will Barnier give way on Ireland, that pebble in Theresa May's shoe?
So we are at an impasse.
Will the negotiators agree on a withdrawal agreement before the 29th of March 2019?
Le Royaume-Uni doit faire face aux conséquences de ses propres décisions.
Not only is it a tricky puzzle to solve, but there's very little time left. The clock is ticking.
Ce qui est pour moi beaucoup plus important, c'est la future relation avec le Royaume-Uni.